Good day, good evening, dear colleagues. Welcome to the fourth day of the International Medical Physics Week, IMPW, focusing on AI. And today's topic is AI and its ethical and legal implications in medical physics. My name is Kwan Hoong. I'm the chair of the Awards and Honors Committee for IOMP. And along with me, Simone Kodlulovich will be co-moderating with me, and would like to pass on this session to her. Simone, please.
Molly, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Sorry. So hello, all medical physics colleagues. It's my pleasure to be here today, moderating these important sessions. We have three amazing speakers, Sharon, Kaur, Kwan, Hoong, and Egor Eitovich. And I want to introduce them. The first speaker will talk about basic legal and ethical issues related to the use of AI in medicine. Professor Sharon is Associate Professor at the Faculty of Law, University Malaya, where she has designed models on healthcare law and ethics at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, including a number of models on the Master of Health Research Ethics at the Faculty of Medicine. Her education includes an undergraduate law degree, Cardiff University, master degree in medical law and medical ethics in King's College London, and PhD in bioethics in University College London. Sharon's research interests primarily revolve around medical research ethics and global health issues. She is the PI on a Wellcome-funded project developing a Southeast Asia bioethics network. One of the thematic research areas of this project is to explore challenges and opportunities presented by emergent health and biomedical technologies. The second talk, Ethical Issues in the Deployment of AI in Medicine. The speaker is our colleague, Emeritus Professor Dr. Kwan Hoong, Department of Biomedical Imaging, Faculty of Medicine, the University Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Dr. Niji is an Emeritus Professor at the Department of Biomedical Imaging, University Malaya. He graduated a master's degree in Medical Physics, University of Magdalena, and a PhD in Medical Physics, University Malaya. He qualified with an American Board of Medical Physics. He received the Merit Award by the IOMP in 2018 for his outstanding contribution to research, education, and leadership. 2013, he was listed as one of the top 50 medical physicists in the world by IOMP. He contributes to research in medical imaging, radiological safety, computer application medicine, and his communication. He has co-authored over 300 papers in peer-reviewed journals and more than 15 books. Professor NG has been a consultant expert with the IAEA and WHO. He established the ACARSEN College of Medical Physics and the South Asian Federation of Organization of Medical Physics, co-founded the Asia-Ocean Federation of Organization of Medical Physicists, and the Asia SAFE. He is the chair of the Awards and Honors Committee, IOMP. And our third talk, AI and Ethics in Medical Physics in the context of IAEA activities. Our speaker is Dr. Egor Eitovich from the Dosimetry and Medical Radiation Physics Section, Division of Human Health, Department of Nuclear Science and Application of IAEA. Dr. Eitovich has over 15 years of experience at the advancing cancer treatment through radiation technology, with a background as a biomedical engineer and a master's degree in medical physics and a PhD in dosimetry. He has managed more than 50 professionals and oversaw the installation of high-tech radiotherapy equipment worth 30 million euros. Egor has trained over 300 specialists across Europe and Asia and conducted thousands of dosimetric measurements. Currently serving as the database officer in medical physics at IAEA in Vienna, he has significantly enhanced data workflows in quality in dosimetry audit database, improving collaboration with hospitals and laboratories worldwide. His involvement in IA application includes contribution to a pioneering IA publication in AI in medical physics and co-directing a major AI workshop. Egor envisions accessible, high-quality, safe, and equitable radiotherapy service for all patients, regardless of geographic location or economic status. So we will start now with the professor, Dr. Sharon, please. I will stop here sharing.
Thank you.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Simone. Give me 1 second. Okay. Does it look okay? So I would just like to thank the organizers, especially Prof. Ng, for this invitation. I must admit, I'm quite nervous. I've never spoken to physicists and so many physicists before, and I think, well, I know that you are probably 1,000 times more well-versed in AI than I am, but I'm just going to cover some of the basic legal and ethical issues surrounding the use of AI in healthcare. So AI is increasingly being used in many different aspects of medicine, in imaging, and it's been used more so in imaging, and I think the evidence, especially in radiology, is incontrovertible that AI really is superior, and it's quite a good companion. But it's increasingly being used in predictive analytics to predict development of disease, to predict how drugs will work in particular patients based on their genomic profile, in personalized medicines, in electronic health records, virtual health assistants. We are seeing more and more chatbots and the use of chatbots and virtual health assistants, both in terms of in clinics as well as where patients are using them at home. It's certainly becoming a very, very strong tool in drug discovery and development. The pharmaceutical companies are using it in robotic surgery. AI as an administrative workflow optimization tool is also very, very useful in the healthcare field. In terms of health wearables, and this is a little bit trickier, especially in relation to the law and regulation, because one of the things that AI is beginning to do, it's really beginning to democratize the use of or the self-care of people. People are beginning to take charge of their own personal medical information and use it to take care of themselves. And so then, whether they're using things like Fitbits or wearables, and whether or not these are actual medical devices, how do you regulate them? What standards should they be held to? What if they're being produced by commercial companies such as Apple, and they're not actually being produced by medical device companies, but they're being used for medical purposes, either by patients themselves or they're reporting back to their doctors, and as clinical decision support systems. And these can be quite sophisticated. And one of the really good examples that sort of went wrong a number of years ago is a sepsis detection model called, and I might cover that if we have time. So, right. So really, in terms of governance and ethics and the law behind it, I think we can think of artificial intelligence as being the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is it has had a profound, and it continues to have a profound impact on the healthcare industry, and it really can, be a game changer and of great use to humanity, where you're able to predict diseases, you'll be able to analyze and to diagnose so much more effectively, and maybe even bring access to very sophisticated diagnosis and treatment modalities to rural areas or to low-income areas. However, we know that it has the potential to cause harm, that there are many things about the algorithms that we have today, or the potential for the algorithms to cause harm. And so the ugly is, what do we do, right? So should we permit or encourage the development of AI in healthcare because we know it is good? But at the same time, we want to minimize the bad by mitigating harm and by developing what is the ugly, its governance, regulatory, and ethical frameworks. And I think this has really been a challenge for people working in the field of governance and ethics for a number of reasons. And so I'm just going to look briefly at some of these reasons and why AI is different from, let's say, a regulatory and a governance standpoint. AI is complex and it challenges existing regulatory mechanisms, and AI is different and it challenges existing legal norms. Now, it's complex and it challenges existing regulatory approaches because there are many ways of defining AI. AI is you have large language models, you now have large model models, you have deep learning, you just have very simple algorithms that make very simple decisions. So what is AI and what do we mean by AI? There are many ways of defining technology. And really, when you're looking to govern something or regulate something, as all of us would know, laws really need to be clear, and you need definition and terminological clarity because people need to know how to organize their affairs. You need to know, well, how do I get a license for this? What are the standards that need to be applied for this? Is a wearable a medical device? Does it matter if a wearable immediately starts measuring BP? Does it become a medical device? What if the algorithm is a very linear algorithm and doesn't do very much? Is that still AI? And what is permitted, regulated, or forbidden? If the law is not clear, it produces anxiety, uncertainty, and that is not good for the law. And AI, unlike many other devices or technologies or initiatives, challenges the law because it's changing and it is complex and it is something today and it's something different tomorrow. The other thing is that it's that green fish, it is different because it actually challenges existing legal norms, especially when you look at the more sophisticated algorithms. They may appear to make independent decisions. They may develop independently. So if the algorithms can learn and change their own algorithm, they are almost autonomous. And if the dreaded black box, if you can't understand and explain how that decision came to be made, who do you hold accountable? Because legal responsibility must follow some sense of accountability. You can't hold somebody or a developer or a user of the device responsible if you have no control, if the device itself is changing things. So really attributing legal responsibility is problematic if you think about it in how we think about traditional laws. If we're not careful how we develop AI laws, and similarly causation, how do we know who caused the harm? If it's really a black box system and we have no idea how the decision was made, and it's in a complex case, how do we even know what causation is? So potentially, if we're trying to fit AI into the regulatory mechanisms and the laws of liability that we know now, it may be kind of tricky. Now, traditionally, how we look at healthcare, most jurisdictions have law that regulate different aspects of the healthcare industry. So, for instance, there are these regulatory standards that set standards. For instance, they license systems. They may license radiotherapy equipment, X-rays, MRIs, that you meet a certain standard. So these are important things that you want people to be allowed to use, but they're too dangerous to be used without some set of guidance and regulatory norms. So that's one way to regulate it. Another way is that laws can help in coordinating. They can facilitate smooth running of activities because they explain to you, right? If you want to open a hospital, you need to have how many beds, you need to have how many nurses for how many beds, you need to appoint how many doctors, you need to have a blood bank and ICU. So it helps to organize things so that if you want to run a hospital, you know exactly what you need to do. You're not sort of confused as to what standards are met. Again, because the activity you're running is important, but it's potentially dangerous, so that the law tends to step in. And at another level, the law seeks to protect rights, that when you are hurt or when something bad happens, in many ways, the law tries to provide a certain redress. So we have things like tort, malpractice, contract, consumer protection laws, and IP laws. So in terms of the healthcare sector, the law operates at different levels, doing different things traditionally. And one of the most important things in terms of regulating and managing big systems or complex systems is regulatory laws that set standards, that set out good practices that prevent harm. And one of the problems with AI in many countries, that some countries have some structures in place. Many countries, especially in lower and middle income countries, they don't have the technology or the ability to genuinely assess the safety and fitness for purpose of complex products and services. So they are unable to, or not in a position at the moment, to set safety standards for AI products because things are changing so rapidly. They may not have the technological know-how, and they may be incorporating algorithms or buying systems without genuinely having an in-country system to assess it. There are many national policies, and this is the way in which AI is currently being sort of regulated. It is by national policies, not laws, but policies. And this, because when you think about it in a political policy sort of a lens, it becomes difficult because the potential for economic gain is great. And you're sort of balancing economic gain versus setting safety standards versus ensuring the rights of people and ensuring efficacy and equity. So it's complex if you're working just within a policy background because that has so many other interests involved. And so one of the things I think might be interesting to think about is the real input from international or regional bodies who can assist in development of appropriate standards across different regions and across different countries. Currently, the approaches to regulating AI, it's really a mixed bag of players and approaches across many different countries. In many countries, you will have industry and international organizations who have issued policies and ethics guidelines and frameworks. And we all know that, while it is good for industry to try and regulate itself, especially if you're thinking about high profits. And if you look at some of the issues that have arisen with Google and with DeepMind, industry regulation in and of itself may not be the safest way to ensure good standards. Governments, as I said, typically at this point are formulating national policy or strategy plans, and it's not very well structured. Some countries have established specific bodies to monitor and supervise the responsible and ethical development of these applications. And some countries have specific laws. Many countries have specific laws on things like data. Data is not all that AI is about, but the development of AI is reliant very, very heavily on data and especially big data sets. So really that becomes one of the core ways of regulating one aspect. So we are seeing quite a lot of data protection laws. And in some places, you're getting some AI laws. So for instance, the European Union, you actually have quite a robust and well thought out AI Act, but you don't have this in many countries, and especially not the developing countries at this point in time. So what do we do? I would suggest that, especially in thinking about AI, ethics, regulations, governance, these are two really good documents. So the WHO has come up with two excellent sort of guidance documents. The first is the Ethical and Governance of Artificial Intelligence for Health that was issued in 2021. And that's a more broad sort of a thing that sets out some fundamental principles that I will go through quite quickly. And the second document is the Ethics and Governance of Artificial Intelligence for Health, when large multimodal models came out, when the AI models had gone beyond just large language models and they were able to function with many different types of input. And the WHO said, well, we need to take this a little bit more seriously, and we need to take it one step further. And these are the additional guidelines, the large multimodal models. And this is sort of what it looks like. And it's an excellent document to have a look at. And really interestingly enough, in this second big guideline, the WHO really addresses guidance to governments themselves. It says that governments should invest in building infrastructure so that everybody in their countries can have access to these systems. Governments should invest in laws and policies and regulations to ensure the safety. So they're really coming back to the governments and saying, at this point in time, you really need to be investing into this, and to actually have specific regulatory agencies to assess and approve LMMs. So this is a really excellent document. But lastly, one of the things I will talk about before I leave are just some of these guiding principles on the ethical use of AI in medicine. And this is from the first WHO document from 2021. And the 6 guiding principles are protecting autonomy. And this really means that, if you're using it in the healthcare, clinicians must still be in the loop. There still must be a human to ensure that the decisions that are made are led, and there's human oversight, that you're protecting confidentiality and privacy, that it will promote human well-being, safety, and public interest, so that you really have to ensure that technologies have regulatory standards, that there are measures to know whether your technology is safe, that you must ensure transparency, explainability, intelligibility. So these systems must not have black boxes. It must be possible to understand how the decisions are made. There must be transparency in how these algorithms are being trained and what data sets are being used to train them. And this is ethical. It must foster responsibility and accountability. So although AI performs the task, you must have oversight. You must have downstream validating of the results. You must have monitoring of the results. Promote AI that is responsive and sustainable, that it has to be sustainable over time. It has to recognize it's the burden on the climate. And lastly, it has to ensure inclusiveness and equity, that everybody across the country has access to it, that AI is not biased, that the training data sets that are being used appropriately, and that there's constant monitoring. So these are just some of a very quick look at some of the regulatory issues and the guiding principles on the ethical use of AI in medicine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharon. Very interesting, and we see that we have a lot, the countries have a lot to do now. Okay, I would like to invite now Professor Kwan to start the presentation. Please, Kwan.
I need to share my screen.
We can see, but it's not in presentation mode.
No, I can't.
Yes.
How about now?
Yes, perfect.
Do you see?
Yeah. The floor is
Okay.
yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'll speak on ethical issues in the deployment of AI in medicine, and particular in medical physics. Now, how many of you or us have been working with AI in your practice or in your research? I'm sure some of us have been working on that. There's growing role of AI in medicine, and practically all branches of medical physics, we are utilizing or exploring the use of AI. And why ethics matter? Well, it to do with safety, trust, equity, and professionalism. Now, you may remember a very old TV series suggestions. Interesting, in 1960s, they have a glimpse of the future. You can see this is their vision of what is teleconsultation. Now, what are the ethical issues involved? Right? There are several, but interesting to note that many movies, cartoons have sort of predict the coming of AI in a way. Now, this is an AI created plan for a CA pancreas. Now, if you're presented with that, you confidently or conscientiously to sign, if pass that plan and it can be applied. So this is another issue that we are facing. And in ethics, we have the basic of autonomy is informed consent, but do the patients and, and AI's role in looking after the health, right? When AI takes over the management of patient. And the other principle is beneficence and non-maleficence. Well, first, we must do good and do no harm to the patients. So AI promises improved outcome, but may introduce harm through the errors, bias, and even over-reliance on AI. And there's a justice. AI can even widen disparities if it's trained on a biased data set. For example, you may be underrepresenting certain populations or certain diseases. Now, let me explore this with you in the form of questions. You can think about that. Explainability and transparency. Now, would you feel comfortable approving a diagnosis or treatment plan, as I shown you earlier, generated by an AI you cannot explain? So AI still is very much a black box, especially in deep learning. And there's a lack of explainability, and that will undermine the clinical trust and accountability. And it is accountable when an AI tool makes a mistake and harms a patient. Is it the clinician, hospital, the software developer, or the vendor, or all? So that brings to the question about shared responsibility and but who takes the bulk of it amongst all these various people. And there will be real challenges in assigning blame if AI causes harm. There's also, as mentioned by Dr. Sharon, the importance of regulatory and professional framework as well. And then we'll talk about how can we ensure AI models used in our departments or in our practice are fair and inclusive? Do we know the origin of the data set where they're trained on? So they might be based or trained on biased data set that will reinforce the health disparities. For example, they would be mostly from a wealthy countries. So those in the least or less developed country will be underrepresented, and certain ethnic groups or certain disease condition may not be well represented or well studied. So there is this risk of algorithm injustice that will be created by AI. Now, the other thing we want to consider is, should AI be used to predict patient survival if that influences whether they get ICU care? Let's say you're saying that AI software right, determine who are critically ill, who should deserve the ICU. As we know, is very limited. So that is the problem with that. So the risk model may influence how we allocate the resource and the provision of care. So it might channel certain one of certain condition based on the background economic situation to ICU care. Therefore, some may be denied of it. So that is an ethical concern, over-reliance on AI. So the AI may be affordable to large centers only. It was pretty expensive. So you might create a two-tier system. And that is issue of equity. Right? So the wealthy countries or wealthy patients who can afford, and the hospital will use AI to provide better care. Those who don't have, you may not have the better care. So that might have a two-tier or even three-tier systems. So you can see that there is a global implication for the undeserved population, particularly the least developed countries may not have access to the AI facilitated healthcare. And should professional bodies advocate for open access AI tools in healthcare? And this is a question that as an organization like IOMP, we can deliberate on this. Is there a role for medical physicists in AI ethics? Definitely there is a role, very important role for all of us. So it's critical role in validation, in safety, commissioning of AI systems. Just like we have been responsible for specifying, for testing, commissioning modalities, right? CT scan, MRI, same thing. We should also be playing this critical role for the AI software. And we also need to ask ethical questions during our development and development in our research, in collaborating with the clinicians. But do we really understand ethics well to ask questions? So the basic understanding of ethics is important. And we will serve as a bridge between the clinical and the technical teams, like the engineers and computer scientists as well. So that bridge also between technology and ethics. So we would also be double up in leadership in ethics as well, the ethical leadership. So we want to ensure the AI tools are rigorously tested and clinical validated, just as test our modalities, CT scan, MRI, very thoroughly. But without the real understanding of ethics, we may not be able to do so. So we need to question the data sets, assumptions, so we can help to reduce algorithm bias as well, or this injustice. And then we should be trained, not just technical, we are all very sound technical, but also in the ethical competencies as AI evolve. And this is a paper I published with Professor Ginny Wong in PSM, Physical Engineering Science Master in 2022. It's a clarion call to introduce AI in postgraduate medical physics curriculum. Have a look at that. There we say, now is the opportune time to implement AI in our postgraduate medical physics curriculum. A wait and see attitude. There is no room for complacency, and let us make a difference. So we have to be using AI responsibility. Toward responsible AI by engaging in interdisciplinary collaboration with colleagues in computer science, with ethicists, legal people, clinicians, patients, advocates as well. That's important. And also, we need to train our physicists, particularly the junior and practicing, to think ethically and not just technically, and this has been neglected. We need to do that. And we also must be part of this ethical dialogue, continue to dialogue with different stakeholders. And I'd like to leave this with this quotation from the Little Prince, the famous Little Prince. Our task is not to foresee, but to enable. So it's our task to enable, to think about AI ethics in our research, in our practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kwan. Now I would like to invite Professor Eitovich, please. Can you share your presentation?
Yeah, hope you can see it. Am I right?
Yes, perfect.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Simone, for your kind introduction. Yes, this great pleasure to be presenting in such important event organized by IOMP this week. I can see 1,300 of participants joined for us for this session. Thank you all very much. Hope you will find something interesting to take home with you. I must admit that after having two such great lectures, you already know a lot about ethics and artificial intelligence, so I'll try to be helpful for you as well. So here's an outline of my talk. We will briefly discuss the relevance of the topic, then I will shed some light on IAEA activities related to artificial intelligence in medical physics. And finally, we will review some relevant guidance document focusing on professional ethics and AI. And we have about 15 minutes for all this. So yeah, let's dive in. I won't spend much time on why AI in healthcare is such a hot topic. You've likely seen the skyrocketing graphs of AI scientific publication in radiation medicine and ever-increasing number of AI-powered medical devices being approved by regulators worldwide. And of course, you follow your professional media. So to cut a long story short, AI has been studied for nearly every process involving medical use of radiation and medical physics, and AI tools being deployed in the clinics. However, there are challenges remain, particularly regarding clinical implementation issues. And some of these issues have deep ethical implications. And it is clearer than ever that ensuring safe and effective clinical use of AI, it requires a multidisciplinary approach. And as a physical scientist in the clinical environment, we as a medical physicists play a key role in addressing these issues for safe and effective implementation of AI in clinics. And the specific role of the organization I represent today is to support member states by identifying roles and responsibilities of medical physicists involved in AI, addressing educational training and training needs, and of course, providing guidelines and advice to all member states. With all that said, let me shed some light on how the agency addresses these needs. Yeah, recognizing that global challenges require diverse solutions, the IA actively gathers advice from world-class experts. Using primary mechanisms shown here on the slide, among those consultancy meetings, technical meetings, and the scientific committee of SSDL network. And the recommendation from these groups guide our technical support for all member states. In short, consultancy meetings, they bring together relatively small groups of experts to provide specific advice or to help us with defined tasks of the agency. Whereas technical meetings, they kind of broader forums where member states exchange information, discuss issues, and build capacity. And the scientific committee of SSDL network is a vital mechanism for medical physics activities, which is unique within the agency, which provides independent strategic advice to IAEA leadership. And applying this to AI and medical physics, 9 related events have already yielded important recommendations, which are instrumental in developing the framework guiding our activities, which you'll see more of. So the first IAEA event dedicated entirely to AI nuclear applications was this technical meeting held in October 2021. It aimed to identify future priorities for the agency work in the area and to address associated legal and ethical considerations. And following this meeting, several key outcomes emerged. Crucially, the meeting emphasized the need that clear guidance and ethical considerations before deploying AI tools needed, especially in clinical settings. And Moreover, the need of standardization and quality assurance was stressed to develop reliable, reproducible AI, which is fundamental for building trust to these kind of systems and models and for AI safe implementation. Following the need for guidance stressed in recommendations to the agency, the IAEA published training course series number 83 on AI in medical physics. And the primary goal for this publication was defining the roles and responsibilities for medical physics that already using or plan to use AI clinically, which provide them with essential professional guidance in this fast evolving topic. This publication also tackles the vital need for education and training, and we aim to ensure the physicists have the competence to implement AI safely and ethically. Looking inside the publication, the content directly supports ethical practice and guidance, and as critically as it details the roles and responsibilities for medical physicists that use AI, but also the publication outlines the educational components like continual professional development and academic module. It specifically addresses AI-related ethical issues and associated regulatory considerations within the elective module for postgraduate medical physics academic programs. For us to further disseminate guidance and training, the joint ICTP-IAEA workshop on AI for medical physicists was held in Trieste in November 2023, gathering 59 early to middle career medical physicists from 50 countries. And importantly to mention that workshop was supported by the International Organization for Medical Physics, as you can see in the bottom left part of the slide. And we were particularly pleased that the president of IMP actively participated in this event and contributed his expertise as one of the lecturers for this workshop. So building on that, this workshop was a very intensive week-long event, packed with lectures and hands-on experience for our participants and for lecturers as well. And fulfilling the need for guidance in this area, ethical considerations were a dedicated topic. And of course, regulatory considerations were another dedicated topic. As you can hopefully see from the bottom right slide, Professor Damilakos delivered the lecture focusing specifically on the ethical aspects of AI and radiation medicine. So looking ahead, work is currently underway on a new IAEA Human Health Series publication. This initiative aims to provide specific practical guidance for medical physicists and their teams on how to safely and effectively implement imaging-based tools in their clinical practice. The diagram from this publication, it illustrates various stages where this new publication guidance provide recommendations for medical physicists, covering the entire life cycle of imaging-based AI systems in their clinical implementation, And now, even though the document doesn't have a separate dedicated section just for ethics, it is vital to recognize that ethical considerations are intertwined with many of these recommended the processes recommendations for those were given. From selection of the tool through quality control, introduction to clinic, and clinical evaluation, nearly every stage involves ethical dimensions that the guidance implicitly helps physicists to address. And in the last section of my talk, I will touch upon some of the existing guidelines for professional ethics and artificial intelligence. So beyond specific technologies like AI, the agency provides foundational ethical guidance. This is a training course series number 78, Guidance on Professional Ethics for Medical Physicists. Its key objective is straightforward: to provide essential information on professional ethics for all medical physicists. supporting their practice. And the publication established the ethical framework underpinning the responsible conduct, including adapting the new technologies like artificial intelligence. And inside these guidelines, you will find how ethical principles influence roles and responsibilities of medical physicists in clinics. It covers key principles, elements like scientific integrity and patient interactions, and what is very important, use specific scenarios to illustrate potential ethical dilemmas that could happen in the clinic. As it has already been shared by Sharon, beyond the IAEA resources, there is some guidance from a major international organization, which is crucial for ethical AI implementation. The first key example is I'd like to share with you, of course, is from the World Health Organization, their document on ethics and governance of AI for health. This manuscript aims to maximize benefits while protecting human rights and ensuring equity. And it outlines essential ethical principles like those you can see on the screen, and they are protecting autonomy, ensuring safety and transparency, fostering accountability, and promoting equity while using AI in healthcare. There is also another document from WHO, also mentioned by Sharon in her first talk, which is focusing on the ethical issues of using large language models in health. Another key international framework I wanted to share with you is UNESCO's recommendations on ethics of artificial intelligence. And to mention that while the WHO guidance focuses specifically on health, UNESCO provides a broader global framework. Its aim is to guide the responsible design, development, and deployment of AI technologies worldwide, while emphasizing fundamental principles like respect for human rights, transparency, fairness, accountability, and privacy. So to conclude, whether we look at the specific guidance being developed by the Agency for Medical Physics or these essential broader frameworks from WHO and UNESCO, the message is clear that establishing, understanding, and adhering to robust ethical principles and clear practical guidance is absolutely crucial. This is fundamental for building trust and ensuring that AI technologies are implemented safely, responsibly, particularly in sensitive field like ours. Ultimately, applying these broad principles and specific guidelines boils down to asking ourselves some very important practical questions before bringing AI to clinical use. And we are to consider, are our teams skilled enough to truly evaluate AI? What are the real tasks, and how do we ensure reliable, equitable performance of AI? What exactly is AI, when exactly is AI appropriate, and for which applications, and how do we monitor it continuously in our specific environment? And only answering these or similar questions is central to professional ethics in AI implementation. It requires us to actively use the guidance available to ensure we deploy these powerful tools safely, effectively, and responsibly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a lot of questions. And so the first question is about, should the patient be informed when the treatment plan is created or assisted by IAEA? And is it ethical to rely on AI tools developed by private companies with proprietary algorithms? So the first, if we have to tell the patient that the treatment was prepared with IAEA. Sharon, I think maybe.
I think ideally, yes. I think it depends, right? Again, on the context. So if AI is involved, let's say if you're using it in an X-ray, if you're using it in a radiology department, and AI is doing like a screening and actually flagging things, but you still have human oversight that the radiologist then checks it again and then talks to the patient. I think in those situations, it's not really AI making the decisions, right? It's AI assisted, but you're still having that person over the loop, managing the actual decision. But I think if you're actually using it to come to decisions to support your decision making, and if the physician is relying on that AI, then I think it is a good idea, because if we think about protecting human autonomy, the patient has a right to know that AI is being used so that the patient can ask questions. And especially if the Malaysian Medical Council has actually issued some guidance on the use of AI by healthcare professionals. And one of the things that it does say is that healthcare professionals should inform a patient if AI is actively involved in the management of the treatment. Over.
And the second, is it ethical to rely AI tools developed by private companies?
I would say whether the company is private or public, what you really want in a regulatory system is you want to have proper standards. You want to have a body managing and regulating it to ensure that it is safe, and that whatever company is producing it is actually providing the information necessary, is transparent about the data that needs to be submitted to regulators. Over.
Okay. Professor
Can
Kwan,
I
how many?
supplement that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course.
Yes. For example, in radiotherapy treatment planning, we have a lot of automatic contouring system getting more and more advanced, much more reliable. So we regard the AI as a form of advanced computer software, what it is actually. So we really don't need to inform the patient that, oh, we contour the target is using this system, that system. Eventually, it advances and matures, and we have proven its reliability. We will just adopt it as a routine. That's how it's happening now.
Okay.
And
And
sorry
Professor,
if I
yeah,
can add,
thank you.
from the medical physics perspective, when you are during selection process of, you already agreed that there is some clinical task that requires AI, and it really your clinical workflow will benefit from the introduction of AI, and when you are during the selection processes. And here it is not super important whether the company is private or public, whereas you need to totally have a good understanding, and you need to get the exact clear reply from the vendor, how they did get this data set in the first place, what the population this data set represents, is it anonymized or not, how did it get with the consent from the patients or not, and of course you should be able to validate it. So this is what is important to take into consideration with during this process of selection of the right vendor to provide you with the AI tool to introduce it in the clinical workflow.
Very good. Professor Kwan, how many models and details of AI you suggest to be added in medical physics master curriculum?
It depends on the emphasis of the master program. For example, in my university, we started this medical informatics long ago, 25 years ago, and we have a small module about 4 or 5 lectures. But as today AI becoming so important, it's pervasive, so we are expanding that. Well, eventually, I anticipate it might be a 2 credit hour course, meaning 2 hours a week for a 15-week semester, uh, and it should be incorporated in various aspects of medical physics in nuclear medicine, radiotherapy, and elsewhere. So it's evolving, and it depends on the emphasis of the respective institution.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may add, sorry.
Yes, of course, always.
Yes,
In
2023, I released the publication, as I shared during the presentation, technical code series 83, it really focuses on together with the roles and responsibilities of medical physics and AI, it really focuses on the educational and training aspects of artificial intelligence in medical physics. And this publication provides clear outline of the elective postgraduate program module with all these topics kind of stratified, with all the models and modalities and aspect needs to be say learned through the process of you being educated in these matters.
Very nice. Okay. And is it ethical to use retrospective data of patient that was never consented to be used for AI development? For all who wants to.
Well, I'll take it. I think it depends, right? So I think if it is identifiable information, probably not. Maybe if it's metadata, if it's anonymous.
The sound is not good. No.
Can you speak louder, please, Dr. Sharon?
Yeah, sorry, maybe my
it's better. Much better. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I would imagine it depends on what that data is, right? So if it's identifiable data, I would say no. I would say generally you should always get consent before getting data. If it is metadata or anonymized data, then in many instances legally it is not so much a problem. But I think one of the problems with AI and with big data is that anonymization is not necessarily very effective anymore, because these big AI models are quite competent at de-anonymizing data. Okay.
Okay. And what attributes are expected? Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, this is an issue that many researchers have been confronted with. Yeah, we will still need, it's evolving, and see how the ethics committee and various regulatory bodies, how they look at that. But it'll be interesting to see how it will evolve eventually. But now there's no standard way of looking at it.
Yes. Well, what attributes are expected from the medical physicist to be regarded as ethical?
I mean, there are like several guidance related to ethics, whether for medical physics profession, which is the publication from launched 2 years ago by the agency, whereas other ethical guidance pertaining the AI use in healthcare and in general, I would say they all reiterate the similar ethical principles, and it is just easier to get through them in these particular publications.
Okay. Can existing medical laws adequately address the challenges posed by AI in healthcare?
I would say generally yes, they can, because you would still have your systems of malpractice. It may be harder to show or attribute responsibility or causation, which is why if you look at the EU AI Act, you're not allowed to have these high-risk AIs that are black boxes. You must have explainability. And at each level, it's just a matter of doing your due diligence, who wrote the algorithm, where is the error, is the error in the algorithm. So it is possible. I don't think you need a new legal system, but I think you do need more specific regulatory guidance in order to provide these standards and to say who is responsible for what and what are the standards at each level over.
Okay. Oh, I think it is still you. Is it possible if a patient files a medical lawsuit on clinician that fully uses AI in the treatment?
Yeah, I mean, sure, it's possible. A patient can sue anybody, right? And I think that goes back to the very first WHO guidance ethical principle, which is protecting autonomy, that doctors must always be responsible for their clinical decisions, that they cannot just leave it to AI. They must recognize what they're doing and know why they're making these decisions. And if they don't understand the AI, then they should not be just following the AI alone. Over.
Yes, I agree. Well, we don't have much time, but the last question, how do we deal with AI-based system already deployed in clinical settings that do not disclose either their performance or training set demography or any explainability tool? For all, who wants to answer that? The last one.
I mean, this is, I cannot say that this is common situation, but it really happens. And there are many things that can be taken into consideration on how to deal with this particular issue. But like the one thing to focus is communication. Of course, you can communicate with the vendor in order to better understand the data they use, the model they implemented, the validation that has been taken before they shared with you the model, and how the intended use and population used for the model to be trained and clinically deployed in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that you shouldn't, right? I think we know enough about AI that you really, as Egor was saying earlier, you really need to know what are the training data sets. You need to know what this model is based on. And if you don't know, then you should either not use it, or alternatively, you should really be monitoring it very, very closely and not just using it. So one of the things I was talking about, which was the sepsis model, EPIC, which is quite an old model. And when they deployed it in America, and it was to detect sepsis, which is quite a complex condition to detect, patients who were in ICU, whether they were going to develop sepsis. And because the algorithm was not released, because there was no training data, they didn't know how it was being used. And it was flagging a lot of false positives and negatives. And there were a lot of problems that they actually had to withdraw this model for a while. And one of the problems was nobody knew what was going on. So I think, yeah, if you don't understand or you don't have the data, you should then be extra vigilant about the decisions that are being made and really be monitoring them very, very carefully. Over.
Yes, I agree. Well, unfortunately, we have to finish this section. I would like to thank you all, the speakers. As you see, we have a lot of questions, so I think that is a topic that we have to discuss much more often. And thank you for all the participants. We have a very huge group today, so thank you very much for your participation. And remember that tomorrow we have more information about AI. So thank you all. Kwan, do you want to say one word? We have to finish.
Yeah, thank you very much, Simone, for moderating on my behalf. So, as the organizer for today's session on AI ethics and the legal part, thank Dr. Sharon, Dr. Egor, and 1,300 of you for participating in our session. This wonderful. Let's keep on learning more about AI, and especially we want to use AI ethically and legally.